A lot of people moving to Bremerton have never even heard of Bremerton, let alone Kitsap County. We are this wonderful little peninsula 12 miles west of Seattle, right across the Puget Sound. So now you know where we are. And you think you may just be picking an area because it's pretty, but really have no idea about the location, the commute, the convenience, or anything like that. The reality is the neighborhood that you choose can have a major effect on the ease of your day-to-day lifestyle, the ferry planning, the bridge bottlenecks, and errands that may take longer than expected. Kitsap County isn't hard, but it's very route dependent. When you look at where people are moving around Kitsap County and why, a clear pattern starts to show up. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the best 5 areas to live outside of Bremerton around Kitsap County so you can be confident in your decision to relocate here. Let's talk about the biggest mistakes I see homebuyers make when they're relocating here. One of which is buying a house that looks pretty online, but not understanding the neighborhood. The areas that give you the best lifestyle for the dollar and without turning everything into a really long drive. And the one area that consistently wins for Seattle access and also what you need to know before paying a premium to get that. Hi, I'm Cassandra. I help homebuyers and sellers relocate all over Kitsap County. I'm really big on neighborhood to neighborhood clarity, commute reality, and making sure that the home that you buy actually fits the lifestyle you want. So if you're trying to decide between Port Orchard, Silverdale, Poulsbo, Kingston, Bainbridge, it's really important to not choose something just based on what looks good on a map. If your real weekly routine demands commuting, that is an important factor because as you saw, a lot of the places can feel really far and there's only a couple of ways to get to and from somewhere. So if you're stuck behind a very slow moving vehicle, that's going to affect your commute and probably your mood. If you want the easiest day-to-day errands, well, that's going to be different from the easiest commute to Seattle. So those two things don't weigh the same in a lot of people's minds. It's a balance, finding value for the dollar with the commute you want and the house you need and the errands that you're running to feel easy, and all of those things need to balance each other out. So if you're moving to Kitsap County, there's a link in the description. Schedule a quick strategy session with me. We can talk through all of your needs and wants, find out where the best areas for you might be, where you're commuting to, how often you need to get to Seattle, and what you want your day-to-day life to feel like. I will help you narrow down what fits your lifestyle so you don't feel the frustration of picking the wrong neighborhood when you get here. Okay, let's just jump right in. I'm going to start with the neighborhood that might be surprising. So if I zoom out, you see all of Kitsap County. It's this whole peninsula right here. So we're zooming in. See Bremerton right here in the middle. So just south of Bremerton is Port Orchard. Port Orchard is right south of St. Clair Inlet. It's this little water right here. And you'll see all these names like Burley, Bethel, Port Orchard, Manchester, Southworth. Those are all Port Orchard addresses. Lake, Glenwood, these are all Port Orchard addresses. So it's this entire section of South County. So it's pretty geographically large. So Port Orchard is really great for commuting if you work in Gig Harbor, which is just south right here, or maybe Tacoma, which is over here. It's pretty close. It's about a 20-minute drive to Tacoma, so it's kind of a straight shot right down Highway 16. It's also really great if you need to commute to Seattle. So over here in Southworth, you will see we have a couple of ferry systems. So the state ferry runs from Southworth to West Seattle. Some sailings stop at Island right here at Faulkner, and some do not. So you just have to double check your sailings so that if you need to skip that commute for time's sake. And then we have the Kitsap Transit Fast Ferry that goes from Southworth to downtown Seattle proper. So if you need either one of those commuting options, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that because you can avoid any freeway driving, any traffic jams, anything like that. So it's super convenient. Because Port Orchard is so large geographically, it's going to have a really good mix of lifestyles and neighborhood styles and that sort of thing. So if you're up here, along this is Bay Street, it turns into Beach Drive. Up here through Manchester. So all these are going to be full Western exposure. You're going to have Olympic Mountains. You're going to be able to see the shipyard. have a view of Manette. This is really lovely property. Down here on the Bay Street side though, like it's going to be right on the road. So you're going to have like lovely views, lovely water, but then also lots of traffic. Port Orchard has a proper downtown. It's pretty quaint right here on Bay Street, and it's going to have a great marina. There's actually tons of boat marge here. In fact, I think they're on a waiting list, like a 2 to 3 year waiting list, because it's so big and you can moor all of your boats there. And it's, from what I understand, relatively affordable. I'm not a boat person, so I don't know. I just have friends who have boats. I actually don't want to own my own. But so you're going to have a proper downtown here. You're going to have all of the county municipalities. You're going to have the county courthouse and all that stuff is down here. The main sheriff's office is right here, although there are like sheriff's office pockets like around the county. And then spread out, you're going to feel like it's going to go from urban to suburban, Parkwood, that's a big neighborhood. Eastport, that's a big neighborhood, to more of a rural feel, especially when you go out towards like Glenwood and Wye Lake. Over here, this right here is Memphis, is the golf course community. So we have lots of different styles of homes and ages of homes. We have ones that are turn of the century, early 1900s to right now under construction 2026. So depending on the lifestyle you want, the commute you want, there's probably something for everybody in Port Orchard. Why people like living here and like buying here is because your dollar's going to go a little bit farther. Property taxes are a little bit lower, so that's nice. The trade-off is that if you work anywhere north, so you have Gorst right here, anywhere north of Gorst in Bremerton, or maybe you're stationed at Bangor, or maybe you work at the hospital, you're going to hit the shipyard traffic, which runs South Highway 3, 2:30 to 5:30 every day. And it's persistent and consistent, and sometimes it backs all the way up here to like Kitsap Lake or Chico. So, I mean, just plan for that. If you don't have to travel in that direction during commuter times, then you'll be okay. Conversely, down here, Highway 16, it's going north, but really it's westbound. So Highway 16 westbound through Gig Harbor in the evening commute is also a parking lot. So if you're coming from Tacoma or Gig Harbor into Port Orchard, that's something to think about. The ferries are super chill. I prefer ferry commute. So if you have your option though, so you can drive around, you can ferry around, you can drive up. So it's kind of like a central location if you need to access multiple points around the county or in different counties. Right now, the average price point in Port Orchard is around $600,000. That's being driven up. Master plan development still under construction. There's a lot of homes in here that are $800,000-900,000 plus. Even middle of the road ones are pulling that 600 number. But there's plenty of homes in kind of these older neighborhoods that you could get for under 500. So they're still relatively affordable areas. If you have kiddos, school-age kiddos, I would encourage you to check out the South Kitsap School District. I think this McCormick master plan that's going in, it's adding thousands of homes and so thousands of families. It's going to be putting a lot of stress on the South Kitsap School District. So I question whether they're able to keep up with that right now in terms of classroom size, resources, availability of teachers, and that sort of thing. So I don't have kids in the South Kitsap district, but I encourage you to research this if this is going to be important to you. Now, if you like Port Orchard, but you want your day-to-day lifestyle to feel more centralized, more convenient, maybe not so much driving, I would encourage you to look at Silverdale. So Silverdale is this little township right here. You see all the Silverdale, is it everywhere? Just on the north end of Dyson Lake. It's Chico over here. I talk about Chico a lot. Tracy Den's down here. So Silverdale is going to be unincorporated Kitsap County. That means it doesn't have a township. It doesn't have city limits. It doesn't have its own police department. There's a sheriff's station in Silverdale that handles all of that stuff. Silverdale functions as a really convenient hub for shopping and medical. It is in the central Kitsap School District, which has some really funky borders. So I encourage you to check that out because some of these neighborhoods up here on the north end of Silverdale are actually in the North Kitsap School District. So it's important to just make sure you know where the lines are for commuting and bus purposes. Silverdale isn't trying to be a cute little downtown first and then shopping second. It's main agenda is shopping and convenience. So all of your big box stores, the mall is here, Target, Best Buy, Trader Joe's, they're all here. It does have a really cute little downtown area. It's called Old Town. And while it's very cute and very quaint, it's very small. Most of Silverdale is going to be the greater commerce area of the county. As I mentioned previously, Silverdale has the brand new hospital. So that's going to be right near this Highway 303 and Highway 3 junction. It is right here. Let's see, Mickleberry, Ridgetop. So right here is going to be where that hospital is, right in this area. So it's super convenient right off the freeway. So if you are medical staff, you need quick access to the hospital for on-call. If you're a traveling nurse and you kind of just want to be within a 5 or 10 minute drive, these communities up on Ridgetop might be a good fit for you. So people who are buying in Silverdale are really just attracted to the convenience of having all the shopping and all the schools and all the everything just right there, super close. You can plan your weekly routine super easy. You get really used to like when places are busy. So if you can avoid those busy times, then you just walk around it. You get used to like when certain restaurants are closed. Like for example, one of my favorite restaurants, Spiro's, is closed on Sundays, which is a super bummer because that seems to always be the day that I want to go there. But they're closed Sundays, so I got to work around it. So I go there a different day, right? So, restaurants have their, especially the locally owned restaurants, they have their isms and they do whatever they want. So you get kind of used to who's who and what's what and where's where. A trade-off for living in Silverdale is there's going to be traffic noise at some places. The infrastructure wasn't built for the volume of homes that have been built around here over the years. And so the roads are tight. There's not much they can do with that because there's water all over. If it's not like a big inlet like Dyes Inlet, it's going to be like this, like Clear Creek or something like these. And so, there's creeks and wetlands all over the place. We're really kind of limited on where we can expand. So I would expect traffic issues for the foreseeable future. So if Silverdale seems just a little too practical, maybe we can consider the small town vibe of Poulsbo, which is here in North Kitsap. So if I zoom out, you see central Kitsap here, trace it in Silverdale. If you've watched my videos, we're getting pretty used to what's central and what's north, right? And downtown Poulsbo is going to be right through here. This beautiful little park right here and all of these shops and stuff around it. It's really lovely. This is where Little Norway is. It's right on Liberty Bay. So as you can imagine, there's lots of waterfront homes, but also a lot of boating, moorage, and marinas through here. Poulsbo, so you see all these freeway intersections. So Highway 3 comes up, and then Highway 305 is what runs through Poulsbo, all the way down Poulsbo, all the way through to Bainbridge Island. Here's Bainbridge Island. And this runs all the way to the ferry terminal on Bainbridge. So Highway 305, but then also Bond Road is 307. So you'll notice like these are all state routes, which means that State Patrol also has jurisdiction here. So just something to be mindful of. And then 307 goes all the way up to 104 out of Kingston, which we talked about in a different video. Poulsbo is going to be a really great lifestyle if you like walkability. A lot of places are walkable, but like depends on what your definition of walkable is. So if it's a mile, 2 miles, I mean, you could live within 2 miles of Poulsbo and it could still be very walkable. Poulsbo is one of those places that feels like a destination, not just like another town. Like it's got a great tourist attraction. Summer times, it's totally busy. So, which is really kind of fun because, it's like this famous little Norway, but like, if you haven't heard of it, you wouldn't know it's there. People who are moving to Poulsbo are there for the identity. They're there for the charm. The price tag isn't so much a factor, but they also like the commute to Bangor. It's right over here. So people who are buying in Poulsbo are going to be maybe like naval officers or chiefs or, people who've been in for a while who maybe this is their second or third home. A lot of retirement demographic people. There's people in Poulsbo who live there their entire lives. Poulsbo is great for like remote workers. If you're living in Kitsap County but working in Seattle, this might feel like a long commute because it's 20 minutes to the ferry and then another 35 minutes crossing. But then you also have to account for the wait time. So say you get to the ferry 20 minutes before the sailing. So that can make your commute feel a little long. So if you're a remote worker, this would be a good option because you get the idealistic, small town Norway feel, walking distance. You get to work from home, and then you can take the ferry either to Seattle or you can take the Kingston to Edmonds at your convenience if you need to go into the office once a week or something like that. So Poulsbo's median price point is going to be a little bit higher. We're going to be probably around that 700 mark. There are a few new construction communities going in here, but a lot of it is going to be resale, just really holding its value. If you're able to buy something on Fjord Drive right here, these are going to be, I think one just sold for $2 million on Fjord Drive. So those are going to be, high-end properties. Your middle of the road, middle-class family home is going to be between 600 and 800, probably somewhere in there. So Poulsbo is definitely not a cheap alternative to Bremerton. It's definitely going to be more expensive on average. So if you kind of have a sticker shock, if you're not willing to pay that dollar amount for the convenience or for the identity or for the vibe of downtown Poulsbo or the location, then there's other options we can consider. We go a little bit north, we have Kingston right here. Kingston is probably one of these best kept secrets in Kitsap County. It is pretty far removed. So if you see, we're way up here. We're about 20 minutes from Poulsbo. It's got a ferry to Edmonds. It's got a fast ferry to Seattle. So it's super convenient in terms of commute. And it's got its own little, we're removed from everyone else town community feel. They have, all their own shopping, all their own schools. This is in the North Kitsap School District, has its own farmers market. So it's pretty self-sustaining. You wouldn't have to leave Kingston to do really anything if you didn't want to, especially with everything being delivered these days. Because, you're traveling into Silverdale or Poulsbo for shopping, you're 20 to 30 minutes from those big box stores. It's a whole day planned around your shopping. Because Kingston is so far away from everything, it's got a really calm atmosphere, very quiet, eastern-facing waterfront, so you're going to get some really lovely sunrises over here. If you can get a property like down here, you have good gravy. If I could purchase one of these, this would be so scenic and idyllic and so quiet. So if you're moving in Kingston, people who buy in Kingston really need to get realistic about their commute. So because it's so far away, you're probably not going to be working in Port Orchard or Gig Harbor. You're going to be working somewhere in Poulsbo. Maybe you're stationed at Bangor Base. Maybe you work over on the east side, so you take the ferry to Edmonds and then commute to one of these other greater Seattle suburbs like Linwood and Mount Lake Terrace, one of these over here. Maybe you're a remote worker. This would be a great location for remote working just because you wouldn't have to deal with a daily commute, but you could still take full advantage of the peace and quiet, the convenience of having stuff delivered. That's kind of the best of both worlds. You do have to be mindful of ferry schedules. So if you're depending on the ferry for commuting, whether it's the state ferry to Edmonds or it's the fast ferry to Seattle, just be mindful of, sometimes there's boat maintenance and they're down to one boat for the sailings. Sometimes there's weather and the sailings get canceled. So just be mindful of that. Those things are rare, but they do happen. Median price point in Kingston's about $650. So it's, right in line with Poulsbo in terms of pricing and affordability, but it's really divided. So you're going to have these, $1.5 million homes and also a $450,000 home and not a whole lot in between. So it's kind of polarized in that regard. It has a lower turnover, which means that the data points that are collected can, if the only home that sold that month is $400,000, then it's going to say median price point for January was $400,000. And that's totally not realistic of the overall picture. So just something to be mindful of when you're shopping in Kingston, that, the sticker price is going to vary a lot. So if you like the ferry access from Kingston to Seattle or Kingston to Edmonds, but you want maybe a more upscale lifestyle, a more affluent community, maybe bougie, that sort of stuff, you would maybe consider Bainbridge Island, specifically Winslow. Winslow is this little town right here, right where the ferry is. And it's this lovely little downtown on Bainbridge Island. So People who are living and buying on Bainbridge Island, there's a lot of generational wealth. There's a lot of family property that's handed down generation over generation. A lot of people live on Bainbridge and work in Seattle, and that makes sense just because we have this ferry access. But also, if you're working in Seattle, your wages are probably going to be higher than an equivalent position in Kitsap County. And so you get to benefit from a higher wage, but then the cost of living in Kitsap County, even on Bainbridge Island, may be less expensive than what you could purchase in Seattle. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Bainbridge Island is known for just being, it's a very affluent community. It's high-end properties, high median price point. And at any given point, it's got a pretty high turnover. Property taxes are a big deal. It's expensive overall to live on Bainbridge Island. Now, that said, it's going to attract the people who that is not a factor for them, right? Bainbridge Island School District is like top 5 in the entire country. So if you have school-age kiddos and you want them in the top-rated schools, even though they're public schools, they're still top-rated for the country. So lots of great schools, and then also plenty of private school options if you prefer private schooling. Bainbridge Island, even though it is part of Kitsap County, kind of feels like its own separate ecosystem. It kind of feels separate. They have their own area code. Everywhere else in Kitsap County is 360 area code, and then Bainbridge Island is 206, which is the same as Seattle and King County. So it's kind of like removed in that regard, but it still benefits from a more affordable cost of living than King County. Some cons about living on Bainbridge Island is that it's going to be pretty car dependent. There are a couple of areas like Winslow, maybe Lenwood Center, that are not so car dependent. But for the most part, you're going to need a car to commute, whether it's, off the island to Kitsap County, or if you're taking the state ferry to Seattle. It's going to be expensive, so you need to plan for that. Your property taxes are going to be high, so you need to plan for that. And you are going to feel like if you do have to commute into Kitsap County proper daily, you're going to feel like that's kind of a long drive, because we're taking 305 off the island all the way through Suquamish, through Poulsbo to catch Highway 3 to go to wherever we need to go. So it can feel like kind of a long drive. So that's just something that you would just need to plan for, especially if you're way down here at the southern tip of Bainbridge Island. So median price point for Bainbridge is 1.1, 1.2, which is probably accurate. Very few properties go on sale on Bainbridge Island under $1 million. When it does hit the market, then it's sold in a week, because, who could believe? Less than $1 million for Bainbridge Island. So if you're coming to Bremerton, say you're active duty, say you just got orders to Bremerton, you're like, where the heck's Bremerton? See, Seattle's here. Bremerton's here, 12 miles due west, and the greater Kitsap County. There are lots of options for lots of different lifestyles depending on your needs, your wants, and your haves and must-haves. Your must-haves, your like-to-haves, and then your budget.